Welcome back to another video, Rams Nation. Today I'm going to bring you the recap of last night's game, the Rams' 41-39 win over the San Francisco 49ers. It was a big win. The Rams looked like they were going to win the game comfortably. It didn't come down to that. It came very close. The Rams made some mistakes down the road, but in the end, they won. Let's get into it. The game started off with a bang when Nickell Robey-Coleman intercepted a Brian Hoyer pass and returned it to the 3-yard line, and then Todd Gurley finished the job with a 3-yard touchdown. Only 12 seconds into the game, Nickell Robey-Coleman later in the game recovered a fumble. He had a pretty good game. Those stats look good from him, an interception and a fumble recovery, but the 49ers had a good day in the air. The Rams looked like they had a comfortable lead. They should have won the game by a large margin, but mistakes kept the 49ers in it. At one point in the game, Blake Countess jumped off sides on a punt. That was like a 4th and 3, 5-yard penalty. First down 49ers when they should have punted. They went down and scored a field goal, I believe. I'm not sure if it was a touchdown. Either or, that's 3 points on the board. Tavon Austin muffed a punt return, and it was recovered on the Rams' own 12-yard line. The 49ers went on to score a field goal then. And then Pharoh Cooper later in the game, when the game, all they had to do was ice the clock. They were up by 8. He fumbled it, and the 49ers recovered, and they scored a touchdown, and that led to a 49ers recovered onside kick, and stuff like that was why the 49ers, a team that did not score a touchdown all season long, ended up putting up 39 points on the Rams. For these mistakes like the offsides on the 4th down and these muff punts, that's where I think Sean McVay is talking about accountability. We got to bring accountability to these players that make mistakes, especially Blake Countess. He's a special teamers. I expect him to get benched just because he's a special teamer. Now, last week there was Robert Woods who made a boneheaded penalty where he swung at a Redskins player. They're not necessarily going to, a fine's not going to really do much. They could bench him, but he's a good football player. Maybe they sat down and gave him a warning or something, but he came back and he made up for it last week. I mean, the Rams still lost last week, but he made up for it this week with 6 receptions and 108 yards. I think that could possibly be a way where they hold the players accountable. They must come back next week and do something great. But the Rams are going to have to hold these players accountable, especially special teamers that jump off sides on a punt. Like, you cannot do that. So if you thought the Rams were going to have a blowout victory last night, like during the game when they had a 2-touchdown lead, like, you were wrong. And now I was included because I thought it was going to be a comfortable lead. I sat back. I'm like, oh, I'm enjoying this. Todd Gurley has 3 touchdowns. Sammy Watkins had 2 touchdowns. Jared Goff had 3 touchdown passes, 292 yards. Everything was going good for him. But when the 49ers scored that 1 touchdown, and then they kicked it off, and Pharoh Cooper muffed the kick. Or not, he didn't muff it, but he fumbled it on the return. The 49ers recovered. And now I started to sweat at that point. And they drove down, and of course they scored a touchdown. And they had to go for 2. And they did not get that. Brian Hoyer threw a pass, and Troy Hill played it perfectly. It bounced up in the air, and Michael Brockers intercepted it. And we're like, oh, the Rams have won the game. Not so fast. The 49ers then kicked an onside kick, completely legal, went to 10 yards. It hit off of a 49ers player's helmet, after the 10 yards, of course. And then it fell right into the hands of a 49er. And then it looked like, oh man, if the 49ers get into field goal range, the game is over, and the 49ers just came back from a game. And like, how would you think of that? If the Rams lost a game where they scored 41 points, how would you feel? You'd be super frustrated. And it looked like that was going to happen. But the Rams came up big on defense, and then Aaron Donald sacked Brian Hoyer on 4th and 20. And all the Rams had to do was get a first down, which they did. And Todd Gurley had like a 17-yard carry, and then he fumbled. I explained this in my reaction video yesterday. It looked like he fumbled. I mean, he was obviously down, but the ball did squeeze out. But Robert Woods returned it took it for a touchdown. Didn't matter anyways. At that point, the Rams won, and your blood pressure can go back down. Like I just mentioned, Jared Goff played a very good game, probably the best of this year, which that says a lot because he's played pretty good all year long. He had his 2nd highest passing yard total with 292 yards. He was 22 of 28, and he had 3 touchdown passes. That's the most of his career, I believe, because he had 3 last year versus the Saints, but he had 5 total last year. He already has 5 this year, and he's only played 3 games. Last year he's only played 7, so that's really nice to see. He only has 1 interception in that 3-game span. So I really like to see that. Gurley had 28 rushes for 113 yards, with the average was 4 yards per carry on the dot. But the thing was, he got stuffed on the goal line 6, 7 times. So the average, the average would have been higher if he didn't get stuffed so many times. He would have had more touchdowns. Fantasy owners, you would have had over like 40 points. Instead, he got you 35. Not too much to be upset with. He also had 5 receptions for 36 yards and a receiving touchdown there. And Robert Woods, like I said, had his best game of the year. He had 6 receptions for 108 yards. And Sammy Watkins, in addition to that, had 6 receptions for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Rams had 2 100-yard wide receivers in this game alone, in addition to Todd Gurley's 100-yard rushing game. So the Rams haven't done this in a while. It was probably the greatest show on turf. Was the last time the Rams had 2 100-yard receivers. They might have even had 200-yard receivers and Marshall Faulk as a 100-yard rusher. That's very possible. But since then, the Rams offense has looked nothing like that. The Mark Bulger days, no. Sam Bradford, no. The Austin Davis, Case Keenum days, no. And Cooper Kupp in this game was kind of non-existent. He had 2 receptions for 17 yards. But, I mean, with Woods and Watkins getting a bunch of targets, they both had 7 targets each. They hauled in 6 each. So Kupp wasn't going to have the biggest game last night. I mean, he's having a good year so far, but last night wasn't really his best. And then for your Tavon Austin snap count update, week 1 it was 7, week 2 it was 9, and week 3, as I predicted in my preview, Tavon Austin had 15 snaps. So they must be just bringing him along slowly. But after that muffed punt, I don't know about that. Then on defense, the biggest stat of the game was Aaron Donald's sack on 4th and 20, and that Nickell Robey-Coleman interception, and he had a fumble recovery. But the Rams secondary, the Rams as a whole, did awful. It wasn't necessarily the Rams rush defense that was bad this time. The Rams secondary was pretty bad too. Coming into this game, the 49ers averaged 127.5 passing yards. In this game, they had over 300 passing yards, which is like 3 times their average so far in the first 2 games. That's so bad. But Pierre Garçon had 145 yards. A wide receiver hasn't torn up the Rams like that. I think Tremaine Johnson didn't really have a good game last night. He did have a couple open field tackles, which were impressive. But that was nice. And they also gave up 113 rush yards, which is better than the 200 they gave up last week. But 113, they could have done better than that. This was a 49ers offense that scored 12 points in the first 2 games, and all came from field goals, no touchdowns. They scored, I don't know how many 39 points is, because 41 to 39 was the first score in an NFL game ever. But 39 points from the 49ers after scoring 12 in the first 2 games, that's awful. Wade, like I explained in my reaction video last night, Wade Phillips better be watching tape. They have a week and a half to prepare for the Cowboys. Zeke Elliott could possibly run for 200 yards. Dak Prescott might throw to Dez Bryant. Hopefully he doesn't get 145 yards like Pierre Garçon. The Rams need to improve. They have a week and a half to do it. And if they do it, they could possibly go into Dallas. I believe it's in Dallas, the game. But it is against the Cowboys. They can go against them. They could shut them down, and the Rams could leave there with a 3-1 record heading into the Seattle game, where we've owned their number. So we start off 4-1. Hopefully, if we do start off good again, hopefully we don't, just lay an egg down the road. Let me remind you that this offense of the 49ers has Brian Hoyer as a quarterback. Pierre Garçon was their #1 wide receiver last night, and Carlos Hyde is a running back. This isn't like Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Devontae Freeman. This is the 49ers offense who has been bad all year. So the Rams, before they play, like the Cowboys have a pretty good offense, or maybe the Falcons in the playoffs, the Packers in the playoffs, they got to shore up on defense. Now it's time for the Rams Nation awards for this game. Now for Offensive Player of the Game, there's a lot of notable mentions. There's Robert Woods, Sammy Watkins, Jared Goff. But I think the winner, the player that's most deserving of this, is Todd Gurley. 149 yards on 33 touches and 3 touchdowns. All came in the first half. It's his breakout game. He has 6 touchdowns in the first 3 games, which is the first NFL player to do that since 2011, which was Calvin Johnson. On defense, the Defensive Player of the Game was Nickell Robey-Coleman. He had that interception that swayed the momentum early. He had a fumble recovery. I mean, there was no one else that really. I mean, there was Aaron Donald who had the sack on the last play of the game. But other than that, he was disruptive. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't have the impact of an interception and a fumble recovery. And then for the MVP of this game, goes back to the offensive player of the game, Todd Gurley. I'm glad to see him in his Rookie of the Year form, perhaps. He only averaged 4 yards per carry, but like I said earlier in the video, he got stuffed a few times. That's going to lower his average, but he's definitely deserving of the MVP. I'm glad to see the form he's in, and that's it for the awards. After being relatively healthy up until this point, the Rams suffered a few injuries last night. Michael Brockers suffered an ankle injury. He did come back into the game, but it is notable. Sammy Watkins entered concussion protocol after his second touchdown. He got hit in the head. And then Tavon Austin is also in concussion protocol, and he most likely has a concussion. Also, center John Sullivan injured his ankle during the game. Fortunately, they do have a week and a half for the next game to heal up. Concussions, usually last about a week, but some concussions might last a couple weeks. Hopefully that is not the case. With that being said, that's it for this video, Rams Nation. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Thanks for watching. Go Rams.